When you think about what makes a business truly successful, a lot of things come to mind. But there's one key piece of the puzzle that's so important, and it's choosing the right supplier. If you get this right, you're setting yourself up for success. But if you get it wrong, well, it can cause some serious problems. So today, we're going to walk through exactly how to find the perfect partner for your business. Let's jump right in. Okay, so here's what we're going to cover. We've broken this down into 5 simple parts. First, we'll figure out what a right supplier even is. Then we'll look at where to find these potential partners and how to check if they're any good. After that, we'll get into the numbers and calculate the true cost of a product. And finally, we'll talk about what happens after you've signed the contract. All right, let's get started. First things first, what exactly is a right supplier? It's a phrase we hear all the time, but what does it actually mean? Let's break it down. It's easy to think it's just about who gives you the lowest price, right? But it's so much more than that. A right supplier is really a partner. They're someone who delivers great quality every single time. But more than that, they understand your business and your goals. They work with you. It's about building a relationship that helps you both succeed. So, how do you find this perfect partner? Well, there are basically 2 ways to go about it. The first is called source selection. This is kind of like going to a big store. You look at all the options that are already there and pick the best one. The second way is source development. This is more like getting something custom-made. You work directly with a supplier to build exactly what you need. Okay, so you know what you're looking for. The big question now is, where do you find them? Let's dive into the best places to search for potential partners and what you need to ask them. You've got a lot of tools you can use here. Of course, you can always start with a good old-fashioned internet search. But hey, don't just stop there. Look at industry catalogs or trade journals for more specialized companies. And here's a little pro tip. Talk to other people in your field. They can often give you the best recommendations and tell you who to stay away from. Once you have a list of companies, it's time to reach out. I like to think of this as a 2-step interview process. First, you send a request for information, or RFI. This is just a quick check to see if they can do what you need. After you've narrowed down your list, you send a request for quotation, or RFQ. This is where you get into the details, like specific prices and delivery times. So the quotes are in. You've got a few options, and they all look pretty good on paper. So how on earth do you choose the best one? Well, this is where our ultimate buyer's checklist comes in. This is going to help you look at each supplier carefully and make a really good decision. First, let's talk about the absolute basics, the must-haves. Number 1, reliability. You've got to be able to count on them, period. Next, look at the money side of things. Are their costs fair? And are they a stable company? And of course, you need to make sure they have the technical skills and equipment to actually make what you need. Next up, we need to look at how they actually work day to day. Can they deliver on time? How easy is it to place an order with them? You want this process to be smooth, not a headache. And quality? That's a huge one, of course. We need to be sure they have good systems in place to keep their quality high and consistent. And finally, and this is super important, think about the long game. This isn't just a one-time purchase, right? You're building a partnership. So what kind of support do they offer? How is their customer service? Do they help you out after the sale is done? Remember, you want a partner, not just a seller. Okay, let's pause on one of those points because it is a massive deal breaker. Their financial health. The last thing you want is a partner who might go out of business next month. So how can you check if a supplier is financially strong? Let's take a look. And listen, don't feel weird about asking for proof. You absolutely should. It's totally normal to ask to see things like their credit reports or their official financial statements. These documents give you a clear look at how healthy the company is, so you can spot any potential problems early on. All right, so they send over the documents, and it's just a wall of numbers. It can be a little intimidating, right? So where do you even begin? What are the key numbers you should actually be looking for to see if they're in good shape? Don't worry, you don't need a degree in finance for this. Let's look at a couple of key numbers. For example, the working capital ratio just tells you if they have enough cash to pay their bills right now. Simple. Or the debt-to-equity ratio shows you how much money they've borrowed. These simple numbers can give you a really quick snapshot of their financial health. So you found a supplier, and their price looks great. But hold on, is that really the final cost? Very often, there are hidden costs you might not think about. So now it's time to figure out the true cost of your product. The key thing to understand here is something called the total landed cost. Basically, it's the real price of the product once it actually gets to your door. It includes the purchase price, yes, but also all the other costs, like shipping, taxes, and insurance. It's the total all-in price. Okay, so that sounds important, right? The total landed cost gives you the real picture. But how do you actually figure it out? Don't worry, it's not as complicated as it sounds. Let's walk through it. It's actually a pretty simple 5-step process. First, you start with the price of the product itself. Easy enough. Then you add all the transportation costs. Next, you have to include any taxes or customs fees. Step 4, add in the cost of insurance. And finally, add any other handling costs. If you follow these 5 steps, you'll know exactly what you're paying, with no surprises. All right, contract signed. You might be thinking, phew, all done. But actually, the work isn't over. In fact, a new and very important phase is just beginning. Let's talk about what you need to do after you've picked your supplier. You see, a good supplier relationship isn't something you can just set and forget. You have to keep an eye on things. You should regularly check their performance. How's the quality? Are the prices still fair? Are they still delivering on time? Checking in on these things helps you catch small problems before they become big ones. And that brings us to our final, really important thought. The business world changes fast, right? The perfect supplier for you today might not be the perfect one a year from now. So the main takeaway is this: always keep evaluating. Keep checking in. By doing that, you can make sure you always have the right partners helping you succeed. The only question left is, are you ready to build those partnerships?